Okay, good afternoon or morning, everyone, depending on where you are. I am Michaela L. Carson. I am an author and an author coach, and I'm here today with Sharon Hughson, who is a story coach. I've been working with Sharon for a few years now, so I'm super excited to have this conversation with her today. Sharon, you want to talk a little bit about what a story coach is?
Sure. Just for everyone, I am also an author and developmental editor, but that's a lot to put on there. So I knew this was probably, since the topic that we're talking about, this was probably the most applicable title that I might have. So a story coach is kind of a unique thing. I really don't see it very much. I see book coach, which can be similar, but that's really talking about the whole publishing project. So a story coach is focused on your story. So what I do is I ask people to tell me about their story. Usually the first thing I do when we have a long-term partnership, which is what I recommend, is I ask for a synopsis of their book so that I can understand their story. Then I have questions that I can ask them. So it's really a combination of brainstorming as well as feedback. I do actually look at pages and give feedback on the strengths and where you might need some work. So that is the focus, is that when you finish working with me, you'll have a solid story that you know works. It doesn't have plot holes. It doesn't have characters that are lame. It works because you worked on someone who knows how to help you strengthen those things.
I appreciate you saying that too, because I find the same problem or challenge, I should say, as an author coach. I'm not a book coach either. I am an author coach. I coach the author through the process. And so you are trained and certified in your field, right? Can you tell us a little bit about that too?
So Hope Writers certification is what I got. And that really was a general writing thing. So for me, the story aspect is getting story coaching myself and learning a lot. I've taken a lot of courses on storycraft itself, as well as the experience of being published for 9 years. So,
and I'm certified as a professional life coach, which a lot of author issues are mindset. A lot of them are connected to things that you would normally go to life coaching for. But I also have the understanding of the inner workings of what it's like to put a book together. So I think we both bring interesting and unique ideas. I've worked with Sharon on my first book. I worked with her as a business coach, actually, when I was switching over to coaching. And I just sent my first fiction chapter critique to her as well. So I'm excited to get that feedback. Anyway, so let's jump in. I want to talk today about and have a conversation about the differences and the similarities between fiction and nonfiction. And we both have different experiences in each. So I think it could be just a good time to talk and see what that looks like. So tell me, well, you've written both. So how does your writing process differ, and how is it the same when you write fiction versus nonfiction?
Okay, so for me, the two biggest differences are around research and outlining. So I feel like research for a nonfiction book really happens before, because you have to have the facts before you can write your book. Yes. And I don't do a lot of research before I write fiction, because what happens for a lot of fiction writers, if you do a lot of research, then you info dump that stuff into your story, and that's boring. So I tend to be that I will get some general information so I know where to go. If it's a culture, let's say, or a setting, or an occupation that I don't really know anything about, I'll get enough general information that I feel like I can jump in. And then in my fast draft, I'll be like, look up, facts about how this actually works, or look out, what does a trail look like along this river, or, whatever. So that when I'm revising, I can add the facts in, but I know it's not going to be an overwhelming info dump, because I have all this information I want to share, because, hey, I know all this stuff now.
It's not meant to be a documentary. I appreciate that, because I do think that's one of the challenges for me with writing nonfiction, is I want to start writing, and I can't until I do the research on the scriptures, and I do it's like, I just want to get to it. And with fiction, you can jump right in with that fun part and not that it's, I'm not implying in any way that God's word is not fun. It absolutely is, but it is a different process. What other thoughts come to your mind when we talk about writing differences or similarities?
So the other was outlining. So I'm not an outliner, and I know some fiction writers are. I am not. I figure out my major beats, story beats, which is a story crafting terminology, which if it doesn't make sense, please ask about it. I'm happy to go into it in detail, but I don't want to spend our whole entire time talking about that.
Oh yeah, let me pause you really quick. If you guys have questions, feel free to make comments and let us know. I'm not sure who else is on live with us right now. We're doing this through StreamYard, so throw your questions out there as we go, and we're happy to answer those as well. Sorry. Thanks, Sharon.
So for outlining is pretty much non-negotiable on my nonfiction, I found out, because it has to be orderly in order for your progression to make sense to your readers, right? And so you kind of have to like make sure that you know what that's going to be. And I don't think it has to happen before. Like a lot of times I'll go, I want to write on this topic, and I'll just like dump everything I know about all those topics and then go, okay, now how would this make sense for the reader to process this information? So I don't necessarily think you have to outline before you start writing with them, but I think there will be an outlining to happen.
But you do have to be organized. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I think you have to have some kind of an organization. It can change later.
Yes.
Well, the other thing I was going to say too, when I write fiction, I don't always write it in order. Yeah, I don't always write fiction chronologically. I'll jump from scene to scene and then rearrange them later sometimes because I just want to write what's in my head and get it out on paper, and then I'll figure out where it goes at a later time. With nonfiction, I find I don't do that quite as much. It's much more intentional, if that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, I learned to write non-literally in my fiction as well. It was just something I didn't think I could. You can change, your process will change over time as you're writing. But I love brainstorming. And so I love that brainstorming is a part of both of them, but it doesn't look the same for me. So like I use mind mapping when I'm doing nonfiction so that I can have my topics, my topic bubbles, and then have thoughts I have on each one. And so that's related. Whereas my fiction writing a lot of times is just a stream of what if questions in my notebook. Like, well, what if this happened? Or what if she did that? Or what if they went here? And, and then what sparks from that is usually how I brainstorm my fiction. So
I love the idea of what ifs. I feel like for me with my nonfiction, I definitely do more of the mind mapping, but I kind of do it like I'm writing a sermon. Like I feel like I always have to have 3 points for every chapter. I don't know why. It's just, it's how I write them. I've never written a sermon in my life, by the way. I've done some teachings and things, but I've never actually preached a sermon. So I don't know why the homiletics part of that appeals to me, but it does. So I tend to have like 3 point, what are my 3 takeaways for this chapter? What are, and I kind of look at it from like the new believer, the person who's ready to grow deeper, and then like a more mature believer, and like what are those 3 points that they need. And so yeah, anyway,
but funny. Is it an alliterated outline like a sermon has, right?
No. It's literally 3 points. Yes. Nice. Like it's more like a kids, if you've ever done kids ministry, it's like, what's the takeaway for the day? It's more like that. Here's a sentence I want you to remember. I'm going to use it repeatedly so you do. I don't really do that, but I do when I'm writing it sometimes for myself to keep it forefront. What about revising and editing? Do you feel like that process is different or more similar?
So for me, fiction, I don't want to say fiction requires more, but fiction is definitely one of those macro editing where I'm looking at all the big picture things that has to happen first. And then the micro where I can just go and take it chapter by chapter, scene by scene, and go, okay, let's make this work. Do I need to up the attention, emotion, blah, blah, blah. And for nonfiction, you really can go chapter by chapter and not really, the macro thing is more about organization and connectivity, I find, with that, it flows together. But you could do chapter by chapter and revise them and revise them and revise them rather than really thinking about the overall picture a lot before you get down to those. But does that sound right? But does that, flow right? So
that makes a lot of sense. I think for me, one of the big differences also is part of my revising editing process, whichever word you want to use there, is the beta readers and peer critique and things like that. And I find that looks different too. I think in fiction, the beta readers, you want more of a finished product because they're going to look at it from a reader's perspective. And with nonfiction, I want it a little bit earlier. I want it more in the middle, I think, because I want them to give me feedback. Like, is this making sense? And I'll do some rewriting after my beta readers. Whereas I feel more like with fiction, there's some revision, but I don't think there's as much maybe clarifying rewriting I don't know. Tell me. I haven't actually used beta readers for fiction.
No, I was thinking about that too. Actually, today when I was reading through this right before I jumped on, I was thinking, well, what about beta readers? Should we talk about that? Because I think that's a different process. Because yes, I do think it needs to be more finished for fiction. The problem with that is that first-time fiction writers especially will think they have it finished and send it to beta readers and realize that those are really alpha readers. The first few long things I wrote, I had alpha readers and then I had beta readers farther down the process. So it really depends on what it is you're looking for. When you're looking for, I want clarity. I want to make sure, do I have all the things in there that I need? Usually for a beta reader, you're going, okay, I'm looking for, are there plot holes? Do you like the characters? I mean, is it emotion? Does it make sense? Do you get the character
connected?
There? Is the stuff I thought I put on the page actually on the page or not? So
that makes a lot of sense. And I think too, like for me, when I do nonfiction, I have a process that works for me. It's a process that I teach. But rather than having alpha readers in nonfiction, I have peer critiques. I want a writer to look at it early on. I want someone who understands the craft, who understands, they might catch some grammar things. That's not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is how can I write this better? A lot more of the developmental editing, I rely heavily on peer critique. And I've done that with a writer's group. I've done that through people online or a swap, like I'll do yours, you do mine, through, different places that I've met writers. And to me, I need that early on because it lets me know if I have to go a totally different direction or like, they're like, yeah, this does not flow at all. A beta reader for me isn't necessarily going to pick up on that in a nonfiction book. They're looking more at the content of how does this apply to my life? And so for me, I kind of have to do my alpha reader would be peer critique, honestly. And then I would have the beta readers a little further in the process before I go to editing, because I don't want to pay for editing twice.
Right. No, you don't. But you should pay for editing. I mean, that's an important thing.
Absolutely.
That everyone needs to realize that especially if you're going to self-publish, indie publish, that's a really integral step so that you have someone whose eyes are not your own, who is a professional, who understands the industry standards to look at your manuscript and make it shine so that it comes across perfectly. So.
And I do think it's something that we overlook, especially early on, because when you're first starting out in writing, you're not really bringing in any income or royalties or anything like that. So it looks, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can spend the money on that. And my experience is you can't not. I don't care if your best friend's an English teacher. It's not the same. Like you said, there's industry standards, there's different style guides, and different publishing houses and different things want different expectations. And so knowing what those are and having an editor who works in that specifically is really important. And not all editors are created equal. I know I see a lot of self-published people who are like, oh, I hired someone on Fiverr and they may have been really good. I'm not speaking to that because I don't know, but you do get what you pay for. And so for me, editing is like the number one budget thing that I put in when I'm working on a new book. It has to be.
You can go figure it out. I think it's going to be this many words. Editors charge by the word. And there you go. You can figure that out. For me, when hiring an editor, so if I publish traditionally, my manuscript's going to get 3 edits. It's going to go through 3 passes. It's going to get a developmental edit. It's going to get a line edit, and then it's going to get proofread. The galleys will get proofread. So as an indie author, you think I should be giving the same attention to my manuscript that it would get if I was being traditionally published, if I want the end result to be as professional as what it would be if I traditionally published. But that can be cost prohibitive, especially if you write a 100,000 word fantasy novel. I mean, that we're talking a lot of money to go through 3 rounds of edits.
Yeah.
So we found that getting a targeted manuscript evaluation instead of a developmental edit, to help you just go, what are the weak points in my story? And then you'll be able to beat those up, and you don't have to pay. It's like half the price usually of what a developmental edit would be. So there are ways to save.
I also believe, this is kind of my platform, I believe very strongly in self-editing. It is a skill you can learn. You can learn how to better edit your own work, not proofreading it, not grammatically, not the line editing stuff, but not even the developmental. It's the part that makes you the writer. There's watchwords that we all have that we overuse. When you learn what yours are, you can go through and do a control F, find them and see, okay, which ones need to stay here and which ones don't. Like there are easy things in self-editing that will save you the back and forth. It'll save you some of those extra expenses if you take the time to learn actually how to become a good self-editor. So I'm a big promoter for that, not in place of editing, not at all, but as a partnership with your editor. Like, do the work, make it easy for them. And you're going to get a good editor. You're going to get, and the more, let's be honest, the messier your manuscript, the more pass-throughs they should do.
Yep. That is it.
Because they're not going to catch it all the first time.
The cleanest you can make your manuscript before you send it to a line editor, which is the edit that I say everyone should definitely have a line edit. If you can't afford the other stuff, definitely get the line edit. The best you can make it before you send it to that, the better the results are going to be.
Absolutely. So. And the less likely you are to make more errors when you're making the corrections from them too, because that can be a problem as well. We kind of got off on track on the pros of editing. So let's circle back. We both feel strongly on it, so we could talk about it passionately, I guess. Let's talk back for a sec, or circle back to, we've been talking this month in the writers group, the author group, about accountability. And I think that can look different for fiction and nonfiction too. So I'm curious, how in your writing adventures have you seen accountability work and not work in some cases?
So I am a timeline creator. I mean, even when I was under contract, they give you the due dates then, right? They say, okay, we need these edits by this date, this date, this date. But they wouldn't necessarily have, it needs to be submitted by date and all the stuff that comes before that. And so in Sharon's calendar, there was all those things. There was saying, okay, this is when the first draft needs to be finished. Okay, and this is how long you're going to have for revisions and self-edits. Okay, now you're going to spend these weeks doing this thing so that you can get it submitted by this date, circled red X, submit to, publisher. So to me, having the schedule creates accountability for me. I'm accountable to that schedule, that timeline that I made. Do I think it's written in stone? No, things happen, I mean, we've had deaths in the family. We've had serious illnesses, life happens. And so you can give grace as an indie author. And even if you have a traditional contract, if something comes up, you can ask for an extension from your traditional publisher, and they are generous with it as well. So, but for me, it's that, because anything that will keep you showing up at the page, that's an accountability factor in my.
I appreciate so much you bringing that up, because you and I have talked about this before in our conversations, but there's Marys and there's Marthas in the world, right? I have so much respect for the women like you who a timeline holds you accountable. It works for me if someone else makes it, but if I do it myself, I am so quick to blow off my own deadlines because I can do it tomorrow. It won't take me as long as I think it will. And I am constantly filling myself with all these excuses. So accountability for me looks different, because that's not enough. And this as my coach. We've been through the roller coaster of Michaela's motivation more times than I can count. I need people. I need a coach. I need an accountability group. I need relationship, because I don't want, it's not that I'm a people pleaser. I don't want to be misunderstood in that way, but I like it when other people are happy. And I like it when my actions, bring joy to someone else. So like for me, if I know, and my husband tries to help me with this, sometimes it works, sometimes not so much, but if I know that he's going to ask me, hey, how much did you write today? And I can give him a good answer, then I'm like, oh, I feel good about me, and he feels good about me, and everybody's happy. Whereas, I'm like, yeah, let's not talk about that. Then I feel like, oh, I'm disappointed in myself. And so that kind of level of accountability works for me. And I think it's important, as we're talking about all of these differences and similarities, to recognize that each one of us is uniquely made. And so what works, and I love this about coaching, because you get to go into the mind of the other person and work with them where they are and how God made them. You and I are very different, but you have coached me so well through some of my stumbling blocks. And it doesn't matter that you don't think like me. It matters that I'm open to accountability with you and having that kind of interaction. So I just appreciate the differences in each of us. And, I would love to hear if any of you are watching on the replay, throw in the comments, like if there's stuff that works for you that's different than us, share that with everybody. Let's learn from each other.
I have to say that I agree that having some sort of physical check-in is going to help more than just having a calendar, because there's times when I lack motivation too. And I'm like, yeah, but if I work double hard next week, then I'll get it done still. So I think I can still make excuses and procrastinate. But if I know, okay, I'm talking to my writing coach next Wednesday at 3 p.m. and they're going to ask me about these action steps that I set up. And I don't want to have to say, well, yeah, sorry, nope, I just didn't feel like doing it, so I didn't do it. And for me, the motivation is a little bit different. Not that I want to make them happy, but that I want to feel like I did my best, because I'm an overachiever. I'm a perfectionist. I need to do my best. And so I don't want to have to admit, and I've had to, because I have coaches too. I mean, I think one of the things about becoming a coach is you understand the value of it. Yes. And people who've never been coached don't understand the value because they haven't been there to see how much it really actually helps them change who they are and what they can get done. So, I mean, I have been looking for 5 years since 2018 for someone I would call a craft partner, another writer who writes in a similar genre to me, who would check in with me every day, once a week, at the beginning of the week, at the end of the week, where we would talk about what we're going to do. And if I ran into a stumbling block, would be open to jump on a quick call with me to talk that through and to pray with me, be a prayer partner, because a lot of times that's not necessarily something that you will find with your coach. So
I love that so much, because I have a group. There's 2 other women that I meet with every week, and we've been doing it for, I think, 7 years now. And we meet weekly to talk about faith and marriage and life. And it's exactly what you're talking about. And I do think we need more of that in the writing world. And we're all busy and we're all overwhelmed a lot of times. And I know that it can be scary, because you don't want to put yourself into a commitment relationship with someone and then be disappointing to them. And I think some people are afraid to step into that level of accountability because they don't want to be a disappointment to someone else. And I would just, encourage anyone who's watching today, don't be afraid of that, because the enemy wants us isolated. The enemy is the one who tries to keep us doing it on our own without support. So if you have the opportunity to work with someone like that, I know I'm launching the Consistency and Accountability Club in January. And part of that is that you're going to have a monthly partner. It'll be up to you guys to decide what's realistic for where you're at. But, utilize that, capitalize on it, because it's valuable. It has so much value. I want to talk about accountability. One other thing that just popped into my head as you were sharing, and I think it's one that we don't like to talk about because we feel like it's, I don't know, somehow taboo, but finances. If I'm paying a coach, I don't want to waste my money. I'm going to do the thing. Because when we meet on Thursday, I don't want that to be a wasted phone call. I don't want to have, wash my money down the drain. I had that when I signed my book contract. I did hybrid publishing. And I was like, okay, I paid for this. I need to use it. Like, I can't just let that money sit out there, because they didn't give you a timeline necessarily on how fast you had to do it. And so, for me, finances has definitely been an accountability thing. When you invest in something, you care more and you try harder. For me, that may just be a Michaela thing. I don't know, but
no, it's the same for me too. It's like, and I think that it is pretty standard, because I will see a lot of people saying that when you're serious about this, you'll be willing to invest money in it because you're serious about getting to the results that you want. And you understand that by making this investment, you are going to be serious about it. So.
Well, I'm just going to throw this out there before we wrap up. Sharon and I both are coaches. We do different things. But if you are thinking maybe coaching might be something you want to try out, I offer a free 30-minute strategy call. It's not a sales pitch. It's just me coaching you for 30 minutes on one issue. So you can see if we're a good fit, if it's helpful to you. Sharon, you want to talk about what you offer real quick?
Same thing, 30-minute discovery call. My question will be, what are you struggling with right now? And then we will try and figure out if there would be a way for me to help you overcome that struggle. And of course, I'll try and help you during our 30 minutes.
Yeah. So anyway, so we can drop the links in to schedule those calls if any of you are interested in that. We'll put it in the comments on the Facebook page to set those up. But again, both of them are no obligation.
Yep.
I met Sharon through a strategy call. So no, I loved her and I signed with her, but that's another story. So definitely, pray, ask the Lord where you can step into accountability in your writing, because there's something for you. And if coaching isn't it right now, if that's not the season you're in, like I said, the Consistency and Accountability Club is going to be group coaching sessions once a week for $69 a month. And it includes a live Q&A on Facebook every week, as well as those accountability partners. So I think it's a great deal. A single coaching session can run anywhere from $75 to $200 just for one coaching session. So I think that the price point is good for people who are just wanting to try it out. So anything other last thoughts that you have?
Agreed. That is a great deal. Yes. You would be surprised how much being able to ask your question and get an actual answer back from someone can stimulate your thoughts to help you figure out how to go about the next step that you need to do to try and move through something. So, and
I think too, I've done some group coaching programs before. And one of the other things is the ability to DM the coach. And you may not get an immediate answer, but that opportunity to ask a specific question or a follow-up question that's specific to your project or your problem, your struggle, I think is good too. So anyway, if you want to check it out, it's coming up. I don't want you guys to sign up this week for that. That's terrible to say that, but I don't, because I just finished putting a post together and maybe I just need to post it earlier. I don't know, but I am going to offer the ladies, the next 5 ladies in this group, an opportunity to sign up for half off. So if you're interested in that opportunity, wait till next week. So, you can sign up now, but it'll be a limited to first 5 to do it. So anyway, I'm excited about that. That's my Christmas gift to you guys in the group. And Sharon, thank you so much for your time today and connecting with us. I really enjoyed talking with you, and look forward to seeing you in the group.
Ma'am, thank you for having me.
All right. Have a great afternoon. Bye.